Mr. Glasgow. Thank you so much for coming today. Who else do we have with us?
Well, this is Jackson, and he's probably my favorite because 7 years ago when we started Paws-4-Kids, this was the guy. And of course, he's always great for putting the white hair on the dark suits.
So he's been with you from the beginning.
Yeah, he's fantastic. In fact, we had a case at the Child Ad Center where a young girl came in with her brother. He gave his statement and she couldn't overcome the stress. So she went home after playing with Jackson. About a week later, she told her mother, I want to go back and play with Jackson and tell what happened to me. And she did. She came back, saw Jackson, and gave a complete statement. We were able to indict the predator who assaulted her. So, you know, if he never did another thing in his life, that's, you know, about as good as it gets.
Saving one child is better than what some of us do,
right?
Right.
This is Kiwi. Kiwi is the ultimate in low key. So she was trained to sit on the witness stand in the courtroom while a child is testifying, if the court so rules that can happen. And Jackson wouldn't be able to sit still long enough. But again, that's not his forte. The funniest thing about Jackson, though, is he was being trained by Sherry Johnson, who does a phenomenal job managing all these dogs. And he was being trained to be a leader dog for the blind. One problem, he had a penchant for squirrels.
Oh.
So you could just see somebody at a busy intersection, that's not going to work. So he was repurposed as a therapy dog. And, you know, I've had a lot of divine interventions in my life, but, you know, Sherry was my administrative assistant, and we were just chatting one day. I've been reading about hospitals using therapy dogs to speed recovery.
Okay.
And I said, what about Jackson? Do you think we could make something like that work? And so that's how this thing started. I think probably we were the first state attorney's office in Illinois to do it.
You're one of the first state attorneys to do a lot of things for Will County, aren't you?
Well, again, it's fun. I like thinking outside the box. And and then lastly we have Cash. And Cash is an electronics detection dog. And he works with our Crimes Against Children unit. Megan Brooks is his handler. And it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job because he doesn't go to a bowl of food.
Okay.
She feeds him all day long as she trains him.
Oh, wow.
So he literally trains every single day. And, you know, we put a SIM card in a drop ceiling. You know how tiny a SIM card is?
Right.
And she's walking down the hallway and he stops and indicates. And that's how amazing his sense of smell is.
That's amazing.
And we had a case recently in Kankakee County where the police did a thorough search of the house and didn't find any of the electronic evidence. He goes in and finds the hiding place under the basement stairs.
Wow.
So, and we have no case without that.
Wow, that's amazing. You mentioned earlier that you're able to bring the dogs into the courtroom. When did that start?
2 years ago, a law was passed that allowed the dogs to sit on the witness stand. And there are agencies throughout the country who are training dogs for that very purpose. Because when you think about what it would take for a dog to sit for an hour or 2 hours without barking or moving, very few dogs can do that, but Kiwi can do it.
Wow.
Cash, not so much.
And so when the dog goes into the courtroom, what is usually the purpose of doing that?
Well, we have to bring a motion before the court and make an argument and prove that these child statements will be more thorough and more truthful with the stress relieving dog on the stand.
When you say stress relieving, that's so if a child unfortunately would have to testify in court, it's to calm that child and so they feel a little more comfortable when being in that intimidating courtroom, correct?
Yes, and just like when I come home every night, my 3 dogs meet me in the laundry room. It brings me back down to earth and calms me, and
no one else jumps up and down when you walk into the house, right?
I mean, I saw a saying that how does it go? Maybe it'll come to me before we finish. I don't want to do a George Bush here.
Okay.
Nothing against George, but seriously, they bring out the best in people.
I think so too.
They're compassionate, they're loyal to a fault, and they don't ask for anything other than a little pat on the head.
So when a family or a child comes in to get services with the Will County Children's Advocacy Center, do you always use a dog or in certain situations?
No, they're walking around the center. We've got a a bay where Sherry has all their little enclosures, and they're normally have the freedom to come in and out as they please. You know, I haven't, you know, obviously she has to manage their going outside every once in a while. But the little girl that I saw just a couple of months ago that came in all stressed out, 5 or 6 years old, and it tears your heart out when you see that. But I heard her giggling, and I look out, and she's playing with the dogs and some stuffed animals, and so she went from, you know, a position where she probably would have been very hesitant to give a statement to being relaxed and comfortable in her surroundings so that she could go in and tell about the terrible thing that happened to her.
And so when the families come in, do they have to pay for any of these services?
No. That's the beauty of the center. We get about 25% of our funding from the county, and the other 75% comes from public and private grants and from fundraising. And we have our annual Men Who Cook, which has been incredibly successful.
You just had that, didn't you?
Yes, and it's grown every year, and we're going to try to keep it growing. But Lisa Lass, who has been the director for the last few years, has done a great job on the grant writing side, and we have a federal grant that has helped us expand our counseling core tremendously. And we have 3 bilingual counselors now, so we're available. We have a large Hispanic population in Joliet, and so we're available to help everyone.
That's great. And so not just with the Men Who Cook and the fundraising events, but you do a lot of public appearances, and you know, you've spoken at schools. And do you think that having these dogs and bringing them out to the community, do you think that has also brought some more awareness to the Child Advocacy Center, or even, you know, brought more awareness to parents to talk to their children more?
Absolutely, and you know, we set up our table at one of the events. Sherry always has the dogs, and they're mobbing her, you know, because the first thing they gravitate to is the dogs. Everybody wants to pet the dogs, and then she's able to tell them about the services that we provide and the services that the dogs provide. So, you know, I just remember that saying, you know, dogs aren't our whole world, but they make our world whole.
I agree.
And, you know, so that kind of sums it up. And, you know, there's such turmoil in our society today. Not with these guys, right? They're an example for us on how we need to take a step back and start being nicer to each other, just across the board.
So you said that you have the annual Men Who Cook event, but there's other ways that people can donate, whether it's they can 365 days a year donate money,
right.
You can donate gifts or toys for children for the center, or donate your time. How can people do that, and who can they reach out to?
Well, obviously the internet is the best way. If you just Google it, phone numbers are passé, right? So we have a Facebook presence there. We have, I think Lisa even has a Twitter account for that.
So make sure you like Facebook, and make sure you find them on Twitter.
Yeah. So and you know, the thing is, we also have, you know, a drug court, a mental health court, a veterans court, a redeploy Illinois court, and then we just recently filed for a 501c3, Friends of the Specialty Courts. So that's another area where people can make donations, because those courts also interface with the Child Ad Center, and you know, especially the drug court and the mental health court.
And what makes those problem-solving courts different than going to court on a day-to-day basis? How are they different?
Well, you know, we realize that those are vulnerable people who have to be treated differently. When Tinley Park Mental Health Facility closed, it was a tragedy. I mean, I testified against it, but they didn't listen. And now every county jail has become a mental health facility. And you can't treat those people the same way. If they're on their medication, most of them can manage their behavior and not commit crimes. And so that's our mission, is to get them stabilized, get them on their medication, and into a mindset that when they do leave the courthouse, that they'll continue to take that medication and be able to conform their conduct to the rule of law. So
if somebody committed a crime, it's but for this drug problem, but for this mental health or behavioral problem, they maybe wouldn't have committed that crime, so it's rehabilitating them and getting them on a path of a crime-free life, and helping the residents in the community as well by putting people out there that are now rehabilitated and have a new community and a sense of life, correct?
Right, yeah, the drug court's been phenomenal. I just ran into one of our drug court graduates, and he said hi to me, and he thanked me, and he said, saved my life. Because with heroin, it's ironic, we take you into custody, we put you in custody for 6 months. Nobody has heroin in the jail. So you dry out, whether you want to or not. And then I talked to one of the graduates, and he said, it took me 3 months in the Will County Jail before I remembered who I was. That's how drastically the heroin had altered his personality and his brain function. And unfortunately, in the private sector, we can't lock people up. It's sadly the people who get arrested actually are getting the benefit of our intensive rehabilitation. And now we have 2 halfway houses. I don't think there's another county in the state that has both a male and female halfway house. So that's the transition back into society. So,
well, I think you are definitely the forefront of a lot of new things that are going on. Having dogs in the courtroom, being on social media, thinking of alternative ways of dealing with people with behavior issues and with crime, but you're making the world a better place. And on behalf of the Will County Board, on behalf of our residents and our community, we thank you, Mr. Glasgow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ragan, for having us.